Regular EDC meeting to order. No real opening comments. I think other than just having enjoyed the workshop with City Council, was that last week? I guess it was. I thought that was really productive. And so we can jump right into city update. Brent, if you have anything other than what's on the agenda.
I do have some things to add to the city update. Last night met with Pools and Parks, and Mr. Boldinghouse also attended. They had a 3-month hiatus because there's not a lot going on with parks in the wintertime, so now we're starting to green up. They had a long list of things they wanted and needed attention, so started working on that. One of the things that we did discuss was the bike racks, and that design was approved today by Johnny, and I'll place the order tomorrow and sign the paperwork for it, so that'll get going. They're aware of that, and they'll make some decisions on placement of those bike racks, and they were very appreciative. In fact, I believe they broke out into spontaneous applause, so that was interesting. So.
That's not something we get that often here. Yeah.
I won't have any problem with the not to exceed amount that was originally placed for trash receptacles. I've got an order that's going to be ready to go for some concrete receptacles. They're very heavy, so once we decide where they're placed, that's where they're going to stay, barring any major natural or otherwise event. And one of the things that they were worried about at the pool was they'll be too heavy for them to move them around. They like to rearrange how tables are and things at the pool for various events. So I'm probably going to get a couple like Rubbermaid type blue plastic ones so they match the other blue things that we're doing, and place those at the pool specifically for that, so they'll be movable. And they wanted a pet cleanup station. Evidently we had one at one time, and maybe it got moved, but down at Shell Bottom. So maybe with the amount not to exceed, I can find a way to make that also happen and get a new pet pickup station. Mr. Pons attended a luncheon last week and made a connection with TxDOT. I've drafted a letter, presented it to the mayor via email, and I'm sure he'll look at that and make some adjustments and forward that on. But basically, it's a contact to explain the connectivity issues that we have between the island and points westerly at Watergate with sidewalks, and then also I brought into effect the bridge here on Clear Lake Road, how that's a safety concern for us. We have golf carts, and we have people that walk and people that run and kids on bikes, and they have to share the road with motor vehicles. Normally that's not a problem on a street with no sidewalks, but when you're contained on a bridge and it narrows a little bit, that makes for a little more interesting opportunity for conflict. So working those various angles, and also reminding him of our strategic plan that this body, as well as City Council, worked on, and that we are attacking those things, and it does match with our strategic plan for being environmentally concerned, health and welfare and safety of our residents and visitors, and we're moving forward in a positive direction in that regard. So that should be submitted to TxDOT, and hopefully we can get some feedback and possibly just get on the radar and get some help. And, I think that's all I have right now. The sales tax update will be later this week, so just on the staging of the meetings, it usually comes in after this meeting, so you'll get that the next meeting.
Okay, so to that respect, the $27,000 in sales tax revenues that shows up on this financial report for February was really...
that's a February number, and that's really...
January receipts.
It would be a January receipt for December sales.
Okay, got it.
Februaries are always a little higher just due to the Christmas season, the seasonality of shopping. And usually on your quarterly reports, it'd be on January, April, so on and so forth throughout the year. Those sometimes show some spikes because some retailers pay quarterly.
Mm-hmm.
So, you don't see them for a couple months and then they pop up again on the next month.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. So director comments, and we'll start with Don.
I'm good. We'll see how's this work. Okay, I'm live. All right. No, I'm good.
Okay.
You're working on the lighting, by the way.
All right.
Just to add a little bit to what Brent mentioned, I had a long conversation with the guy. He's a public information officer with TxDOT for Galveston County. And the idea was, we're having trouble putting in these sidewalks, so the expense, the engineering problems with the slope and blah, 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 blah. He says, well, it's very nice. He said, we don't traditionally put in sidewalks unless they're tied to a road program, but we don't like saying no either. So, I'll run it by everybody there, see if we can find some grant money and whatnot. So, he sounded positive. I'm not, holding my breath necessarily, but we'll see.
Yeah,
I don't know.
as we talked about, I think even if they could ultimately just help us with right-of-way acquisition or manage the project or something, it's good to have that contact. Yeah.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
So.
Yeah, I've been talking to CenterPoint Electric about underground utilities. I'm at the first level, and she has gone to the underground engineering department, and the first person I'm talking to there says that they would be her opinion, and obviously ours too, the best way to go would be underground. So from Clear Lake Road down to Aspen, we'd like to get those lines out of the way, and maybe, I don't know if there's any on our side of 2094 in front of our parking lot, but those could also be considered to be buried. Tried this once before and it was too costly, but I'm thinking maybe they'll take another look at it, maybe not be. I went by the pool today, and the pool repairs on the tile and stuff, they've done a good job down there. It looks really great, so real happy with that. And I talked to the developer that's doing the hotel, and they're on the second round of drawings on the restaurant, and which I think will probably be one of the first things, and they're still getting contractor bids and drawing and stuff on the first group of condominiums, which are of course located in Kemah.
Thank you. Johnny?
Brent gave an update on the meeting last night for pools and parks, but ultimately we're going to leave it to them to decide where to put these bike racks, so we don't have to do it, and they're going to be a lot more qualified than us. They were very excited about it. And something that we may want to look into is maybe some sort of funding of projects for that committee. So maybe they can go part by part, and not small things like trees and stuff, but if they think we need a new swing set and a fence and this, a larger, and then one at a time, maybe that's something that we can look forward.
Yeah, I think if they can just give us a menu, kind of in order of priority, and we can determine what we can allocate to that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing you guys already mentioned was I gave the financial snapshot, and it's the highest it's been since February of 2018, at $27,000. So,
encouraging. Yeah. Thank you. Thomas?
I attended the coffee with the mayor, and surprise, surprise, there were no questions about the parking lot. Nothing. It seems to be an issue passed. Next week, I'm attending the EDC breakfast in League City, the one Ronnie you sent out.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
The rest of the stuff I have is on the agenda. So.
Okay, great. And we'll move that up kind of out of respect for the guests. But go ahead and, do we have any unscheduled visitors? And did you want to introduce Bob? Or
Bob, can you get up and introduce yourself and tell us who you are and why you're here?
Yeah.
I'm Bob Rolfe. I live here in Clear Lake Shores, down here in Hawthorne. I'm running for the EDC ID number 12 Water Board. And so I just wanted to introduce, you might have seen a few signs out there. But, my wife created a Facebook page, so just appreciate your support. And brought some bio sheets if you're interested in background. So just kind of wanted to get involved in the community, so love it here.
Great.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
We need your help.
So we'll move to the consent agenda, and if everybody's had a chance to look at the February financials, the check register, and the minutes of our regular meeting of February the 11th, and if so, if I can get a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
And do I have a second? Any discussion? There being none, all in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes. I think there may be no further update on Drawer Avenue. It's just a standing.
Yeah, it is kind of a standing recurring theme on the agenda, but I do have a little bit of information to pass along. I spoke with a traffic engineer out of Houston. They're conducting the warrant study for the traffic light. It will be at 518 in Drawer, and that's kind of one of the driving factors of this project. We want a light there. It'll assist with the ingress, egress to the island, evacuation, so on and so forth, and it'll slow down traffic for any business concerns that eventually go into the empty lots that are located along that corridor, or the land that's there. I don't think it's lotted out yet. So they are looking at that, and that is the delay in getting a letter from Galveston County to proceed with the right-of-way acquisition, the corner clip for the traffic light and all of that. So those conversations were taking place without my input, and I got involved because they had some questions and brought them up to speed, and so we're moving forward with that. So that'll be presented to TxDOT for traffic light.
Great. Okay. We'll now, if it's okay with everybody, go ahead and move item number 9, discussion and possible action regarding a program to provide faster internet service to Clear Lake Shores up, and we'll come back to the other items, but so these folks don't have to sit through the rest of it. Yeah. And obviously this is our ongoing conversation about the poor internet service we have here on the island, and Thomas's investigations and options for getting us much better service. So Thomas, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, I've been talking with Paul Dietzer, Southern Broadband. He's the one that used to have Kix Internet, the ones that are beaming the signal from the Endeavor building. And now they merged into with Southern Broadband, and it sounds like they're going to get bigger and bigger, so hopefully not like...
That's why Don's here tonight.
Okay.
And we've been talking about the solution for us to improve our infrastructure. It's a lot of money. They're here to answer questions and hopefully tell us a little bit more about what it's all about.
Tell you, Thomas, do you don't mind, could we describe what are our options today for internet service? My wife is...
Okay, we can leave it as is. The only... Okay, pretty much the only option we have today is, for anything of speed, is Comcast or Xfinity. There are some people that have Frontier, but they don't service all streets. They're very picky, and they don't really have high speed. Okay, yeah, I'll be, the word high speed is used, quite flexible in the business. Anything over 3 or 6 megabytes seems to be high speed, but it's just basically a notch over dial-up.
And how are these provided? I mean, is that all wireless, or how is that?
Well, they are all using, pretty much they're using Comcast lines or the phone lines.
Okay.
Now, the only way to go forward is we've got two options, well, 3 options. We can either do fiber, which is the future. We can wait however many years it will take to get 5G down here. They say nationwide within this year, but that means probably somewhere in each state this year.
Mm-hmm.
Not down here. In Houston they have it, but it's going to take a while for it to come down here. We can continue the way it is, or the alternative is do nothing. I mean, so 5G, fiber or nothing. That's essentially our options.
Okay. Thank you.
Fiber is already out here in 2094, so it's all a matter of just hooking into it and getting it up. I mean, and that fiber is what's powering those soon-to-come 5G towers.
Okay.
And maybe Paul can say a little bit about the speed, 5G, how they're going to throttle us, or how it is expected they will throttle us compared to fiber.
Hey, I got a question for you. Is that fiber, would it run on the poles, or would it run?
It will have to be underground, which leads into what Ronnie was talking about, burying stuff, but because it may be a good idea to coordinate that, so that at least they have one trench at one time instead of doing it in a few weeks intervals.
Okay.
They usually bore that stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
The reason why it can't go on the poles is they weren't out here to measure, and the distance that you have to keep from existing lines and down, and from the ground up, there wasn't enough clearance.
So if you were to put electrical underground, you couldn't put it in the same trench because of the
I don't know.
electric?
You can.
You can?
Yeah.
As long as it, what, 1 foot of, or 2 feet of?
Yeah, it depends on the areas, but there's specs on it, but,
Yeah.
we'd have to see what they call for here, but a foot or two typically.
So is this price here that we're looking at that was quoted, I guess, is that to run it underground?
Yeah.
I can actually clarify that real quick. So originally we were looking at putting above ground, on the poles.
Yeah.
And once we found out that we couldn't do that, it takes a lot more to put underground. And
Yeah.
so our pricing, which we still don't have 100% of it in, there's a couple things we're waiting on. Just to clarify, because the boring is a lot more expensive, and then especially when we're looking at going all the way to the home. So everything will be underground from down the street and to the home. So from the home, then you have something, come up along the side of the house with a small box, but that's where it would actually end for the fiber. Originally, we thought the price was going to be a little bit less. As far as the monthly plans that we have a typical 3 meg plan, a 100 meg plan, and a gig plan. And those are the same plans that we're going to use for this community. We were trying to work in some discounts and making sure the numbers work, because obviously it has to work for us, it has to work for you guys, for us to do the project. So like I said, we are waiting for a couple more numbers to come in to finalize it. But we were here just, to answer any questions and maybe, move things along, where we can.
Is the ballpark in what I sent you, is that about right still?
Yeah, as far as the ballpark for that number, we are, as far as that number is just taking it down every road, every street, make sure it's in front of every house. Now, the part that we're waiting on, which is going to be a little bit more, is actually, while they're doing it, it's a lot cheaper just to run it right from the road straight to the house as they pass the houses. And so that little piece is what we're waiting on right now. So it will be a little bit more, but not a tremendous amount more.
And then if while the installers are here, like Paul mentioned, it's much cheaper to do it that way. But so what we would do is kind of like have a plan as we're rolling it out, so that people can sign up, because you have to have everyone's permission to put that box in their house.
Right.
So
Good
we
luck
would
with
have to
that.
do But anyway, real quickly, I'm Don Workman, and I'm with a company called RTA, Rural Telecommunications of America. And we're doing a consolidation of wireless providers across the country. We're based here in Houston, and Southern Broadband is one of those acquisitions. So that's why I'm here, to try and help out if I can in any way. I know we're looking at we're going through the assessments now. I'm going back through what everybody put together, and so we're looking at that to see what else needs to be done.
How are you going to be different than Comcast for us? I mean,
Well,
if
one
you ask
we're
anybody
local
on the
here
street,
in
they are.
Houston, you could come knock on our door.
You actually have people
Well,
working.
they're right down on Lawrence Road.
Yeah.
Comcast. Well, I have a question. What if, is it such a method of delivering it wirelessly, so you don't have to trench up to every house and do all that kind of stuff, where you would put it to some hot points here, then we would be able to...
Well, I wasn't involved in the beginning here, but
I mean, is that even technical?
fiber is the future. I mean, once you put that fiber in, it's gonna surpass even 5G. That is still the...
Right. I'm just saying though, if we had the 5G here underground, is possibility to send it to us, to our homes.
You could do a small cell deployment. That would be the 5G. That would, you feed each of these little cells, you put them on telephone poles and things like that. It's possible. We can look at it. I mean, I think these guys are just put down fiber.
The numbers are a little bit higher because of the technology and the equipment cost, especially for 5G. It's actually more expensive than...
I gotcha.
Yeah.
And then fiber is more future-proof, for the fact of, you know, say new technology comes out, the box that you put in your house is what you have to change to get faster speed.
It's much more reliable.
If you need 10 gig or, you know,
Right.
whatever the speed is down the road, the technology that feeds between point A, point B on the ends of the fiber is where all the research and development goes into. So that technology is what advances every year to get better equipment, better, you know, better speeds out of it, to where it can pass more data through the same exact fiber.
And, I mean, for me, I mean, this, I know nothing about this. I'm way out, I'm already outside of my league, but I think the question that Ronnie's asking is, if we're now on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of service, and we're at a 1, and an 80% solution would be $200,000, but a 95% solution is $600,000, we may be perfectly happy with the 80% solution. But you're suggesting there's really not that kind of price delta. I mean, anything above what we have now is somewhere, give or take, this price range.
Even if we were to build out like small segments, it'd actually end up costing more, because when you design the project, you have to design it in mind as the full scale of the project. Like what's the maximum that you have to have? You have to make sure that it's built out to fulfill that anyway. So your upfront cost for the main infrastructure would be higher anyway, even if you cover a smaller area.
Okay.
Go
I'm sorry. I was going to say the other question I had is, and by the way, I was really pleased to see the federal loan program, because that makes it a lot more palatable to think in terms of that, not that full cash outlay, especially when the benefits are going to be derived over many years. But what kind of, well, two things on the service, the individual home service, what kind of buy-in are you assuming before it's feasible for you? Because that's a question I would have as to what kind of overall percentage of folks subscribing. Yes.
First month free.
Well, again, I was down at their headquarters yesterday. But we need at least 100 homes signed up before.
Okay, so it's not again 90% of the homes. It's a reasonable number.
Yeah.
Okay, and that would be at the full price, or just somewhere on these options?
Average. Yeah.
Yeah, and then just for frame of reference, what is 3 megabytes? Is that megabits or mega somethings? At $45, what's that really get you? I have no idea in terms of, is that pretty darn good, or?
So basically,
Yeah.
the biggest problem people have.
You won't stream with 3 meg.
Yeah,
Well, you can do Netflix.
You can do some high def Netflix,
Maybe,
if that's all
480.
you're watching. If you had multiple people on it, the 3 meg is more for like the people that's just doing emails, watching some videos on YouTube or Facebook, you know, just stuff that's been sent around, doing some light stuff.
Gotcha.
You can watch some streaming stuff like, you can watch YouTube on 1 meg of internet. But the thing is, if you have 3 megs of internet and you're watching Netflix, it uses the whole 3 megs. Netflix is designed that if you have 6 megs of internet, Netflix will use your 6 megs of internet, and up to like 15 or 20 megs of available internet just to transfer their data. But it just depends on the actual end user, what their habits are. If they're just using it for emails and you know, like a lot of light stuff, that's perfect. But if you have a child in the house, or do some gaming or some like a lot of YouTubing, videoing, and multiple people using it at the same time, then that's where you want to go to the next tier up.
Gotcha.
And we're working on an IPTV solution as well right now. So voice, you'll be able to get a home phone for this service, and you'll be able to have the IPTV as an option as well.
Got it.
That's
VoIP is what you're talking about there?
Yes, sir. That's
My-
available today.
My question is, you know, a lot of times if you bring your fiber down, you put it to demarc at the house, and that's your router, correct?
Yeah.
So, a lot of these homes, most of these homes in here are, they'd be lucky to have, you know, cable, you know, coax. You know, some of them, the newer ones, are gonna have Cat 3, 4, and 5, and now 6. So, what is the signal loss between the router and fiber, which is instant, to a Cat 5, Cat 6, or coax?
Yeah, so the fiber
Because they're all
runs in-
different.
So the fiber runs into your router in your house, and you
Mhm.
get Wi-Fi from there typically, right? So, signal loss is not really an issue.
Most of our customers that when they sign up for service, we run the line to the house, and then from the box outside, you know, where, like, say it was the box that we'd run outside here, we'd run a line into a central location and put an access point, which is totally wireless. It's like away from anybody being able to mess with it or change it, do anything to it. And then you have your smart devices, your phones or tablets or TVs, whatever it is, and you just link up to that wireless device. And that device covers, you know, typically 2,500 square foot home. If you have, you know, 4,000, obviously you want probably 2 of those to cover the full.
So I have some of those devices in my house, but I need multiple of those hot points because of the levels that of my house. Plus I have a metal roof, so, which inhibits the signal, I guess. So it just seems like a very large undertaking, I guess, in my mind, with all of the boring under the streets to supply this type of service. So it's $1 million what we're talking about, over $1 million for this, correct?
Overall.
Yeah.
I mean, not for you guys.
Well,
No, I'm saying like if,
you've got 535,000, which is 50 or 60% of the total cost to build out.
But you guys aren't paying that. You guys are the 530 some odd thousand, and then plus, like I said, going from the house or from the road to the house, that portion is what you guys would cover. So typically, like just using that number, which is probably going to be about 50,000 more roughly, and I'm not holding any numbers because I'm not the engineers. I didn't design it, and I'm just throwing a number out there for example purposes. But whatever that number is, then if you guys put 20% down and then went through the traditional funding, which we're not a finance company neither, so it wouldn't be us that's financing it, but whatever bank or government entity you went through that provided that.
Yeah, so I'll just give you that example. I think Paul, you might have put in here was example. We're working with some communities over in Mississippi, for example, where they're getting government loans backed by the USDA, 2% loans. I think this one was 3.75 you mentioned, but there are 2% for this broadband fiber build-out that you can get, and they pay it over 15 years. First 2 years interest only. And so it makes for a good program, and they get the high speed, real high speed broadband to the constituents.
A little bit back to what you said, Don. Here, if you get fiber into your house, the bottleneck is going to be from that box to your device, or your device.
Right.
That's going to be where it's going to be the slowest. So if you have Wi-Fi in your house, I mean, if you have a metal roof, it should technically it should bounce down off of it. So it should be better.
Yeah,
Because you don't need a signal from the outside. The signal is already in your house.
Correct, yeah, but if I step outside on my porch, or right beyond my porch, which is within 9 feet,
It sounds like
I have no signal.
Yeah, but it sounds like you need for cell service or for Wi-Fi.
That's for Wi-Fi.
Yeah, then you need to upgrade your Wi-Fi.
Right.
Well, well, I mean, I've already got amplifier on it.
Well,
No, but you need more than one device.
Well, I've got more, I've got
okay.
multiple, but I don't have one outside, but
I got 11.
just if you stepped outside within, 8 to 10 feet, you don't have a signal.
and it,
Going through walls is a problem too, so I get
Yeah, maybe that's what it
It
is.
does.
And also, just the fact that if you have too many devices, what a lot of people don't understand is you can cause your own self-interference. There's only 3 channels that you can use on Wi-Fi. And so, when you get 2 devices on the same channel, and they're too close together, they can kind of cancel each other out.
It's like having 2 stereo speakers, one on each side, and they're going this way, you can't really make out what the other one's saying.
Well, obviously, I don't think we have an action item tonight necessarily, but I do think, I mean, the price is daunting, but then if I think about it in terms of critical infrastructure, I'm sorry?
We can make a comment.
Oh, yeah, but if I think of it in terms of critical infrastructure, you go, well, you'd certainly you'd spend that paving one street, and is it that important? And it may well be over the next 20-year horizon. I do feel like, and maybe this is chastened by some of our recent experience, that Thomas has a lot more expertise in this area than any of us, but probably we need that independent expert who could assess this and say, yes, this is the best option available to Clear Lake Shores today, and this is a rational approach, because we then have to go back out to the community and say, we're making a $600,000 commitment over the next X number of years, and we need you to buy in, and we want everybody to feel really good about that. So I think we'll need to think about that.
The mayor mentioned it at the Coffee with Mayor, and he got a lot of thumbs up.
Yeah, no, I think we could easily get there. We just have a couple of steps. I guess that was really it. So Mike.
Yeah, just if you could educate me anyway. I keep hearing and reading about the future of 5G and some of these, Sprint, Verizon, ours is going to be this much better and blah, blah, blah. Then you read about these satellites they're talking about launching, where they'll beam down 5G service to all the poor countries in the world and whatnot. Yeah. So, I mean, when all that kicks in, what kind of speed are they going to be providing?
It's varying. I mean, you see the commercials, like for Verizon in Minneapolis, they're showing 2 gig, but it's just going to vary on how close you are to that tower. Here's something to think about. Today, there's for 4G LTE, all of us probably pretty much got 4G LTE on our phones. Mm-hmm. There's 350,000 towers in the U.S. servicing 4G LTE. To go to 5G, it's 850,000 towers for that same coverage area. Now, on top of that, then they got to build out areas, maybe like in the rural areas for us. You're lucky to get 4G LTE, right? So they got to add that to it. So that's why I think your point was when 5G actually gets here. They're all starting to build out in the urban areas first, and then it'll roll out to here. But and that will take a period of time. And it's still, a lot of communities don't want 5G as well because it's in the microwave frequencies. People think they're going to get fried from the frequencies. Testing's never been done. Nobody knows. I don't. The jury's out. I'm not an expert. I don't know. Okay. On whether that's.
Well, my concern would be if we invested in this type of technology, would it eventually at some point become obsolete because of 5G, or would it always be around?
Well, fiber is your best way of communication, most secure, most reliable. We normally, it's in the rural area, again, I'm talking about rural America here, fiber is pretty expensive to lay. In this community, because all the houses are close together, it's a very reasonable price for this rollout. But any communication expert will always tell you a piece of fiber is the most secure, most best way to go. You're just not affected by all the interference in the air, and it's always less speeds in the air typically. Fiber, as you upgrade, the way they upgrade is they change the color of the light in the glass, in the fiber. That's how they get more speed out of it. So the only thing that's going to change is that end device. Fiber is typically known as a 20-year asset or more. So just something to think about.
Thank you.
Whether it's us or not, fiber is an investment. You can get better value on your homes with fiber to the home. It's a fiber to the home neighborhood. So there's you know, you gotta take into consideration those things. Just my opinion.
Charles, I have just a couple things I wanted to
Yes.
kind of add to the conversation. With density of the houses, that's real important for deployment of this.
That's right.
Look at it in rural Indiana, and even when houses are 300 or 400 yards apart, it gets expensive to lay fiber, and they have to make so many connections within whatever their calculated number is. Mile of fiber, they want so many connections to hit their bogey so they can get their payback.
That's right.
So, Clear Lake Shores is actually bigger than this island, but, the majority of our residents live on this island. We have some that are scattered, on the other side of that bridge. But on this side, we have about 550 potential connections. So that's kind of the magic number, for the total universe, I guess, for here. If I understood it right, the deployment plan would get pre-signed homes, and while they're putting it in, then run to those pre-signed up homes so that they can compete.
Yeah, we would like, I mean, obviously why they're here is when you wanna, the install team's here, so it's less cost, right?
And it's a minimal disruption of yards and things. It's a hole next to the house, it's a hole out by the street, they bring it up, slice it, send it on.
Yeah.
I had a question, you know, we have, particular and very specific building.
No electricity, it's light. We don't see, yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if this would, because of the connection point, would be subject to base flood elevation requirements. If it's not a conductor of electricity, I don't know how that is. And do you have similar deployments in communities that are similar to this, where houses are up in the air? Yeah.
We're based out in Bolivar.
Oh, okay, perfect.
It's all water.
Worst case scenario.
And do you have a ballpark, people that, you're gonna have people that are resistant to sign up at the front end, because it's like, do I sign up, is it really gonna happen? After that initial deployment, what's the average cost to the end user to have fiber?
Yeah, so afterwards, we think it'll probably be $150 install.
Oh, that's not.
If they don't have to take the service. All they have to do is tell us that it's okay to put the fiber connection on the house.
So
We just gotta get permission to do that, that's all.
So your experience is kind of like when you build roads, you harvest traffic? I mean, what's your experience as far as when you build out something? What's the percentage that actually signs up after a while?
In telecom, it's very standard to get at least 30%. That's pretty much the number, but it takes some time to get there. So we're floating it, you know, because I have to put infrastructure in. We have to get people, we have to get trucks, you know, all that kind of stuff to support this. So we're cash flowing that until we get to that magic 100 or so homes, you know, where we can at least break even.
I have a question. How many other communities in this area have you installed the same system?
Well, actually, for Southern Broadband, over in Gwinnett, we did our first deployment last year. And, so.
Where was that at?
Over in, Grand Oaks.
Grand Oaks. And how many approximately?
Three others that's kind of like been in the process of like, just like you guys, this system will be started next week. You know, it's just the process of going through, you know, their numbers, to make sure that it looks.
That was an aerial deployment because the poles were clean, we could put up there.
Oh, okay.
But the contractors that we use have put in AT&T's fiber all over this area.
If this was an aerial deployment in this neighborhood, in Clear Lake Shores, what would the cost implications be? Would it be less?
Probably
or
about
more?
20-30% less.
20-30% less.
Yeah. Yeah. See, we could still do aerial, but what happens is you got to contact the utility company. They come out. They got to move all those wires again. So then it ends up costing more. So.
Okay.
And quite frankly, being hurricane prone and the other things, obviously burying it is much better.
So you can't ride on the phone lines that are already existing?
No, sir.
They won't give you permission to do
That's
that?
right. And each line's got to have so much separation in it.
Right.
But what the big thing here is that there's already so many things on those poles. You've got to have, I think it's 17 feet or something. I don't remember what the exact number is, but ask the engineering guys, there's not enough places to move it, so you got to call somebody to come in and move all those up or clean them up, because maybe some of it's abandoned, I don't know. That's another problem that we see a lot on poles is the cable companies abandon the plant, and so then you got other problems. But so burying it is the best. I mean, you can't ask for more. You'll get 20, 30 years out of that industry, whether it's us or anybody else. If you guys want to do this, I would highly recommend it. If you can do it that way, that's the way to go.
All right, thank you very much.
So even though you're speccing until you get to the 100, you wouldn't come in and try to make sure that we had that level of interest and people willing to sign up in advance of going ahead and committing. You'd be willing to kind of spec that you'll get there eventually?
Yes.
Okay.
So what we would like to do is work with you, to make sure everybody knows it's available and that they have the option to sign up right away, and even if they got on a waiting list, to where, because it's going to take some time to deploy and get everything set in place and do the whole process. So even when you guys give the green light, that period of time, we could start the process as far as like just informing the community and letting them get on a waiting list. So when that time does come, it's just as quick as to run right to them, hook them up, and they're done. As we go down the street. But if they didn't, we still, like I said, we don't have to have that 100 commitment first. It's like, let's go ahead and grow it, build it.
Got it.
Put it in place.
I think we need that, maybe that final price that you say you're awaiting the information on, so that we have good numbers. And then, Brent, I think we need to sit down with the mayor and kind of brainstorm this a little bit as the best approach.
We're a little bit of a different animal too, because we do not have property tax. So our income flow is based on the sales tax that we gather from our merchants, business locations. And so, for instance, like USDA grant, they won't loan against sales tax revenue because it's not guaranteed. Places go out of business.
Well, we can borrow against sales tax revenue, maybe not from USDA, but we can borrow against sales tax through other sources, but I don't know if it's subsidized, I would not,
So, that's kind of a challenge for us as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you guys do bonds at all?
No, we have no bonds. We have no utilities. We grow grass. We have a swimming pool. Trying to make things look pretty. Police park keeps people safe. And we watch sunsets.
Yeah. So, no, thank you. And
That's it. We don't have water, sewer, anything like that. Well, we maintain streets and drainage.
One other thing, how competitive are you guys with Xfinity and Comcast, I guess?
it would have been at 5% or 7 or 6%, it wouldn't have been as low, but.
Did you look at the competition for the area? And so we are the same price as Comcast, $50 for 25 meg. So we would come in a little lower on the 3 meg plan, but in the 100 or the 1 gig, we're significantly less. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, are you guys just having problems with Comcast? Why?
Well, everybody hates Comcast one way or the other. I mean, I got 1 gig service with Comcast, and when you run the speed test, it tells you I'm getting 940. Ooh, great. And then I have another little device that checks in the background, so they probably don't detect it. Yeah, then I'm getting more like 650. So it's not that that isn't enough, but the thing it's really the latency that makes a difference.
Yes.
And with Comcast, I'm getting a latency anywhere between 11 and 17, and with this it'll be 0.1.
Yeah. How much do you pay for that gig service?
120 a month.
So
all,
we're
all
right.
in. Yeah.
So we're in line with that.
But most of us package up our internet, and our cable because they're the cable provider.
Yeah, but I split it up because it was a lot cheaper to split it up.
I don't know what we have, but I know if we've never watched a movie at home streaming because we'd have to start buffering 3 days ahead of time. And I just don't have that kind of forethought. So, well, yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we're getting, thank you all very, very much, and appreciate this. And Thomas, I know, has been